So Schrodinger equation is the defining equation that determines the mechanics of particles like electron, because they exhibit wave nature, and therefore you can think of Schrodinger equation as a kind of wave equation, okay, and it can be written as I, or if you want to use J, basically it is square root of -1, I or J, I h hat dou psi, which is called the wave function, that is a function of position and time, dou t is equal to an operator which is called the Hamiltonian operator operating on x comma t. So this is our Schrodinger equation. Now, depending upon the problem, you have to substitute for h. So h is basically the operator version of Hamiltonian. So h is called the Hamiltonian operator. Okay. What is Hamiltonian? Where Hamiltonian is the total energy. So Hamiltonian is the total energy, which is basically, that is, H is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Okay. Now in classical mechanics, this is equal to half mv square plus v of x, or you could also write it as v square by 2m plus v of x. Now when you go from classical, so in classical mechanics we have Hamiltonian, and when you go to quantum mechanics you have Hamiltonian operator. So we need to change Hamiltonian to Hamiltonian operator. Operator, don't worry about the term operator. It just means on wave function it will take things like derivative with respect to position, multiply with some function. So that's what operator means. Okay. Whereas h means is just an energy, it's a scalar thing. Okay, p square by 2m plus v of x, that will be a scalar thing. Okay. Whereas h is something that can operate on a function. Now the way to go from here is, like, wherever p appears, you replace it with minus j or I h hat dou by dou x. Okay, if it is a one dimension, then you have only px will be replaced with this, and x will remain as x, and there will be no change to it. So if you take your p square, so h was basically p square by 2m plus v of x. So what will that become? So that will become minus j h hat dou by dou x. So that is 1p. So we need p square. So then again minus j h hat dou by dou x, and then the whole thing is multiplied with the 2m plus, since x will remain as x, we will have v of x. So this one, if you simplify, minus into minus will become plus, but j into j become minus, and so that will be minus h hat square by 2m, and dou by dou x of dou by dou x is dou square by dou x square plus v of x. So this is how the Hamiltonian, which is in the classical mechanics. So classical mechanics, to go to quantum mechanics, you have to do this transformation. So number one, p should be transformed like this, and x should be transformed as itself. And when you do that, you will get the form of H. So this is just a one-dimensional case that I have shown. If it is a 3D case, so this is 1D. Now if it is 3D, then H is basically you can say P will be a vector, so it will be P dot P. So the P square means P dot P plus V of x comma y comma z. So this will be transformed like so P dot B, so P will be transformed like minus j h cut, then dou by dou x plus dou by dou y plus dou by dou z. Okay, so that will be dot with again minus j h cut dou by. Okay, so since it is a vector, you will have components here. So let me write it as I, j, k. Okay, here also I, j, k plus j dou by dou y plus k. These are unit vectors in x, y, z direction. Dou by dou z. Okay, so that will be P dot P, and then that will be divided by 2m plus V of x, y, z, which if you now simplify, you will get it as square by 2m, and when you take dot product I dot j is 0, I dot k is 0, j dot k is 0, so all that remain is I dot I, j dot j, k dot k, which is equal to 1. So this will become square I dou x square plus dou square by dou y square plus dou square by dou z square plus, so this is the operator, this is the Hamiltonian operator. Okay, so the Hamiltonian, which is just p square by 2m plus v of v, will become an operator which is basically obtained as just replacing px as this. So similarly, if you want to replace py, it will be going to minus j h dou by dou y, etc. Okay, so this way if you replace, you will get in this form. Okay, so once you have the Hamiltonian operator, then you can write the Schrodinger equation by substituting it. So this can also be written as del square. Okay, this is also called the Laplacian, which is denoted popularly as del square. Okay, so you can write it as del square plus it's a shorthand notation. Okay, so therefore Schrodinger equations becomes minus j h cut, sorry, there is no minus here. Schrodinger equation on the left hand side, you don't have any minus. It is just j h cut dou by dou t of psi of x comma t or x y z comma t if it is 3 dimension. So or you can write it as just vector r comma t is equal to, then for h you can substitute as, so there is minus here, minus h by 2m del square psi of x comma, or let me put shorthand notation r comma t plus v of r into psi of r comma t. So this is the expression for Schrodinger equation, where v depends upon problem to problem. V will vary. Okay, for example, in atoms, V is like the attraction of the electrostatic attraction of nucleus on the atom. So that will be like the electrostatic potential. Okay, so electrostatic potential, you know that it goes like 1 by r from the origin where nucleus is sitting, or if it is some other problem, it may be varying with x or y, etc. So this is the Schrodinger equation that we have to solve to find out the wave function. Now when we try to solve, so as I introduced in the last class, the way we will solve is by, first step is applying the variable separable method. So if you apply the variable separable method, that is you take this, you write it as say sum into some another function of t. So function of a position into function of time. Now if you do this, then if we are able to separate after doing this substitution, if you are able to separate into two parts, one on the LHS and one on RHS, and on one side you have only a function that depends on position, and on another side if you have a function that depends only on time, then we can utilize the variable separable method. Okay, so if you substitute here LHS, you see that it is only a partial derivative with respect to time, so that will only act on f of t and not on phi of r. So it will be, phi of r will be a constant, you can pull it out. So it will be, that is phi of r into I h squared rho by rho t of f of t is equal to, and if you look at the terms on the right here, the second derivative, that is del square, is basically dou by dou x square plus dou by dou y square plus dou by dou z square, and if you operate that on f of t is a constant for that. Okay, so you can pull it out, so you can write it as f of t into minus h cut square by 2m, so del square plus v of r. Okay, so I have pulled out f of t. Now if I divide both sides with psi of r comma t, so then what will happen is that this thing will be divided by, and there will be a 1 by f of t. So 1 by f of t into this, and similarly right side also I have to divide by the same thing, which is the product of phi and f, and so f of t will be cancelled and you will get 1 by v of r. So this is the required form that we said if you can bring in. So if you look at LHS, only a function of time, RHS it is only a function of position. Okay, only a function of time, only independent variable is time here, and here only position variable are there, so it is only a function of position. Now it is 3D, therefore r vector. So in such cases you can it is only possible, equality is only possible by I mean if both are a constant, that is the only way it can be satisfied. So if you assume it as a constant, and we will name that constant as E, so equating LHS to a constant, that is E. So what we will get, we had 1 by f of t into not I, j. Okay, some of the book it may be j, especially physics books it will be I, but electronics book may give it as j. Since we are in electronics, so we will use j. And then dou by dou t of f of t, and there is an h cut also. This is equal to, so if I rearrange, so that is equal to j h cut dou by dou t of f of t is equal to E f of t. Or I can further rearrange it as dou f by dou t of f is equal to E by h cut and j h cut. So if I bring the j on the numerator, it will be minus j E by h cut f of t. So that is a 1D differential equation. Or you can write it as dou f of t by dou t plus j E by h cut f of t is equal to 0. So this is a very familiar differential equation. Here we have a constant. So derivative of a function with respect to time, you can write now it as a not as a partial derivative, you can write it as full derivative because it's only one variable. So d by dt. So d by dt of f of t plus, so probably you know the solution to this. So solution to this equation is basically f of t is equal to some constant, okay, some constant, say let's say a into e raised to minus of whatever is this constant, that is j E by h cut into t. Okay, so that is a e raised to minus h cut by t. So that is the solution for f of t. Okay, so if you know the energy, okay, then or if you know the constant E, okay, right now E energy, it is not we didn't say it is energy, it is just a constant. Okay, if you know that constant value, now that constant should satisfy both sides of the Schrodinger equation. Okay, it should satisfy the right side also. So if you can find if you know E, then you can write the time dependence of the wave function as a into e raised to minus j E by h cut into t. Now what is that constant a? So this equation is valid provided we know what is E. Okay, so question is like what is E? What is E? So if you look at the right hand side, then that will give us another equation equating RHS. So let us give some name for this equation. Let's say 2, and by 1 I will give the initial equation as 1. So this is 1. So equating the LHS of equation 2 to a constant E, and now equating RHS of equation 2 to the same constant. We have to equate it to the same constant. So what is the RHS equation? RHS equation is basically, that is minus h square by 2m del square we have got phi of r. So this is the thing. So we have phi of r plus e of r phi of r, and we are equating that to e. So there was the entire thing multiplied by f, or 1 by phi of r. So that I am going to take it to the right side. Okay, so this is what I get. Now if you look at this equation, this is basically H operator acting on psi of r. So the left hand side is basically an operator acting on a function. An operator is acting on a function, giving you the same function multiplied by some energy, some constant. Okay, so this kind of equation is called eigenvalue equation. So this is equation 3. Equation 3 is an eigenvalue problem. What do you mean by eigenvalue problem? If you have a function, you perform some operation on it, and after performing the operation you get the same function multiplied by a constant. And already you are familiar with this from signals and systems. If you remember, we had a system to which we give exponential input, and the output is also exponential but multiplied by a constant. Okay, so that is an example of an eigenvalue problem. So if you remember, just to connect you with an LTI system, if you give some input which is a special input, e raised to st, the output is basically so usually what the system do, it will basically do a transformation. So it is just like operating on this, it will basically do the convolution of e raised to st with h of t, and what we get out at the output is basically some h of s multiplying e raised to st. So this is like e here. Okay, the function form is not changed. If the function form remains, it is just multiplied by a number. So therefore e raised to st is called an eigenfunction and h of s is called the eigenvalue. Okay, so in a similar way, so here h is something different. H is a the Laplace transform of h of t. So don't confuse with the Hamiltonian here. In our context, it is Hamiltonian. Okay, but it has the same mathematical structure. So same mathematics appear in various parts of engineering and science. Okay, so if you understand those things, it is very easy to understand the theory well. So this is basically an eigenvalue problem. So what is an eigenvalue problem? When you have an operator acting on a function, if the resulting function after operating is of the same form, then same form multiplied by some number. Okay, so let me just give you another example. So this is one example, example 1. let me give you another example, example 2. So if suppose you have okay, the operator, so let d by dx. Okay, so we need to find out the, so operator is given, so the question is find the eigenfunction of this operator, or let me also, okay, so let me say operator O. So find the eigenfunction of the operator O. So if that is a question, which function when I operate upon operate with d by dx will give me the same function multiplied by a constant. So there is some function, that is d by dx, or in other words, if I write that is, I have some function f of x, or maybe g of x, just to avoid repetition of things. I will get some g of x multiplied with some constant k. So find the function g of x which will satisfy this property, that is when it is operated with the operator, an operator is given as d by dx. So that is d by dx of g of x is equal to k g of x. So which function can give us this result when it is operated with the by the operator? It will result in the same function. It will not change the function. It is only multiplying with a constant. Which function will be able to do this? So we know that g of x is equal to e raised to k x will do this, right? When you take the derivative of g of x, you will get k coming out multiplying with e raised to kx. So this is the solution. So g of x is called the eigenvalue, and k is called k is called eigenvalue, and g of x is called eigenfunction. So eigenfunction and eigenvalue we have to find out. So these are examples. An LTI system is an example. D by dx is an example of operator for which e raised to kx is an eigenfunction. For LTI system, e raised to st is the eigenfunction, and this LTI system will be a differential equation in time, okay, with constant coefficient. Okay, so that is how the LTI systems are represented. We started solving some problems also where capacitor, inductor, etc. with the resistors. So we wrote the KVL and we got some differential equation. So that is basically the operator. Those differential equation operators are acting on e raised to st, but it will not change the form of e raised to st. It will remain, but it will be multiplied by a constant. Alright, so the equation 3 is of similar kind, that you have an operator which is the Hamiltonian operator operating on a function of position, and it is giving you the same function of position and multiplied with a e. So here, if you solve this equation, what is known to us is only h. Okay, here what is known to us is the operator h. So that is there. So when you define a problem, v of r, what is the potential in the problem, is known to us, and then kinetic energy, it is always the same. it is minus h cut square by 2m del square, so it comes from p square by 2m. So that will always remain same. So we know both the kinetic energy part operator and the potential energy part operator we know. So we know h cap or the h operator or Hamiltonian operator. So here what is known to us is the expression for the Hamiltonian operator, and what we need to find out that is the unknowns. Are basically this one, that is the eigenfunction and the eigenvalue. So whenever we solve the eigenvalue problem, you will get both the eigenfunction and the eigenvalue. So these two should be found out from the given h. So that's the kind of problem that we often come across in quantum mechanics. Even in this subject also, we have an eigenvalue problem given to us, the operator is known to us, but we need to find out what is the corresponding eigenfunction and eigenvalue. So once you find out, once you solve this and find out these, then everything is known about the problem. Okay, whatever can be known about the problem can be found out from these two. So once we determine these two, whatever that can be known, whatever can be known can be found from these. So once we determine these two, whatever can be known can be found from these. So our aim is now to evaluate phi of r and E. So for example, after solving, if you get E, then I can immediately write what is my so total wave function is basically psi of r, which is now found out. Suppose after solving the eigenvalue problem, I found out phi of r, and then I know that it has to be multiplied with e raised to minus j e. E is also known to me into this. So this e is found out by solving the eigenvalue problem, and this psi of r is also found out by solving the eigenvalue problem. So you substitute e in the expression for f of t. So product of psi of r and f of t is our solution. So this is called the wave function. Okay. So once you have the total wave function, you can say total wave function. So it has a position part and a time dependence part. Now whenever we solve this eigenvalue problem, usually it is not just one solution, there will be multiple solutions. Okay, each solution will have a particular E and a particular phi of r. Okay, so which you can represent it as E1, E2, E3 and phi 1, phi 2, phi 3, etc. So that is usually the case. So usually the solution of eigenvalue problem. What is the eigenvalue problem? H operating on psi of r is equal to E operating on the same function will result in multiple. So multiple, and this multiple is very often it is infinite number of solutions. They can be labeled. Each solution can be labeled using each solution can be okay. Each of these solution can be labeled using a number. Okay, and this is what usually called as the quantum number. So they can be used labeled using using a number, okay, which is usually called as quantum number. Okay, as so the eigen functions can be labeled like with an index. Okay, let me say index. Okay, using an index. So that index is just to distinguish the different solutions. Say for example, phi with a suffix 1. So that label that we are add. Okay, so that 1 is an index. And then you have phi 2, phi 3, etc. So this is the way we have, and correspondingly so they can be labeled using an index as, so these eigenfunctions will be like correspondingly E1, E2, E3, etc. Okay, so eigenfunctions will be, so what do we mean by this? It means that the same operator, Hamiltonian, if it is operating on psi 1, you will get E1 multiplying and same operator. So there have multiple eigenvalues and eigenfunctions, and this will give you E2. Okay, so this way. So there could be even infinite number of such functions and corresponding constants. And since you see, if you look at a dimensional analysis, it's very easy to see that left hand side you have an operator corresponding to energy. So the eigenvalue is therefore called as the eigenvalue of Hamiltonian operator. Hamiltonian was total energy. Total energy operator is called as energy. Okay, so it is called as the energy eigenvalue. Okay, so that way you can write called as energy eigenvalue. Okay. So similarly, if you have a different operator, you will have the corresponding energy eigenvalue of that particular operator. For example, momentum. You can also find the write down the operator for momentum and solve for the momentum. Okay, so the momentum px operator, if I write, similarly the eigenvalue equation for solving the momentum. It will be minus j h cat dou by dou x. So this is basically px. So we need to find the operator, and then there is some function which is unknown to us. So let's give some name. What name I can give? Okay, let's take h of x. So that will give you some momentum value multiply h of x. So this is the way we will have to do. So this is the operator acting on h of x. So this is also an eigenvalue problem. So because I already told you the operator corresponding to p is minus j h cat dou by dou x for px. So that is operating on h of x, and if you solve this, you will get basically momentum eigen function where h of x is the momentum eigen function and p is the momentum eigenvalue. So for everything that we can measure, there is an operator. So that's how the classical mechanics and quantum mechanics differ. For everything that we can measure, there is a corresponding operator. So you need to find the eigenvalues and the eigenfunction. So that will tell you what are the values which the particle or the system can take for momentum. The solution will give you the possible value which can be taken by momentum, and often most of the problems, these values turn out to be discrete. Okay, it cannot take any value of momentum or any value of energy. You can only take certain values of energy. So only for certain values of energy, say E1, E2, E3, only for those values this equation can be satisfied, or you can find out an eigenfunction. Not for arbitrary value of E, the solution may not exist. Okay, mostly it is the case. So that is why we say that energy is quantized. So the system can take either energy E1, or it can take energy E2, or it can take E3, one of those. It cannot take anything between E1 and E2. That is forbidden. So the energy, momentum, all the observable quantities are discretized or quantized. Okay, and corresponding to each of those value, we have what is called as a quantum number. Okay, energy quantum number, momentum quantum number, etc. Okay, so that is the way. So what we did was basically taken the time dependent Schrodinger equation, and we applied variable separation method. We got what is called as time independent Schrodinger equation. This is also called time independent Schrodinger equation. So the time independent Schrodinger equation in equation 3 is an eigenvalue problem. Okay, and then we looked at the eigenvalue problem and its examples, features, and by solving. So what is known to us is an operator. What is unknown is the eigenfunction and eigenvalue. By solving the eigenvalue problem, we will get both of these, and often there are multiple energies and multiple corresponding eigenfunctions which will satisfy in this manner. And once we find that out, then we can write the complete solution like this. Okay, So if energy is even, then our wave function will be written as phi of r into e raised to minus j E1 by h cut into t. Now what is very strange in quantum mechanics, there are certain things which are like very difficult to make sense in quantum mechanics. So let me tell you one such thing, okay, and that is the superposition. And this is very strange, superposition principle, and we have seen the superposition principle in signal science system. It is the same superposition principle, but here what it gives rise to is very interesting. Okay, so what does superposition change? If x1 is an input which gives you y1, x2 is an input which gives you y2, and then x1 plus x2 will give you y1 plus y2. Okay, so that means if you have two solutions, that is energy can be E1, that is one solution. Okay, system can take energy E1, no issue. So we have let's take two eigenvalues. Okay, let's take two solutions of the eigenvalue problem. Okay, so let's say this problem itself. So we find out E and phi, and usually there are infinite solutions, but let's take two of the solutions. So that is you have H operating on phi 1, which gives you E1 and the same function back, and you have same operator acting on another eigen function that will give you another energy. Yes. Now the interesting thing is that I can add these two functions, right? So if I add these two functions, that will give me H operating on phi 1. I can add this function with some coefficients multiplied on, like alpha, just like we did it in the case of signal science system, alpha of phi 1 plus beta phi 2. Then what will be my result? So let me rewrite this. So you just need to multiply equation 1 with alpha. Okay, so alpha H operating on psi 1 of R, so that will give you alpha E1 of R, and then beta, I am multiplying the second equation, and that will give you beta E2. Okay, and then I am going to add these two. What will I get? H operating on alpha phi 1 of R plus beta phi 2 of R. So that will give me E1 multiply alpha, or I can say alpha into E1 phi 1 of R, so that will be the right side, plus beta multiplying E2 phi 2. I can write like this. So what does that mean? So it means that if we have two solutions, a linear combination of the first solution and the second solution is also a solution. Okay, so that is any linear combination, any linear combination. So that is what superposition means. Any linear combination of two solutions is also a solution. Is also a solution. Okay. Now, okay. So physically, what does that mean? What it means is that if you have energy corresponding to the first solution as E1, so if the electron is sitting in the state say given by phi1, so phi1 is the wave function, the position part of the wave function, and if it is sitting in the phi1 state, so in atoms they are like s orbital, p orbital, all this, those are all functions, okay, just like phi1, phi2 are functions. So when it is sitting at a s orbital, it will have an energy E1. When it is sitting at p orbital, it will have energy E2. But now what we are saying is that it can sit in both orbitals at the same time. Okay, it can sit in a superposition of the two orbitals also. So that is something that we cannot really make sense out of. How can the electron take an energy which is corresponding to the s orbital and the p orbital at the same time? Okay, so those are like some strange, weird things that are there in quantum mechanics. So such kind of things are there everywhere. So I am just giving you one such examples. So it could be energy with respect to energy, it could be with respect to position, it could be with respect to momentum. So the particles are allowed to take two or multiple values at the same time, which doesn't make any sense in the classical world, because if electron is moving at some speed, say 5 meter per second, then it has to move with 5 meter per second, and you can't have 5 meter per second and 10 meter per second at the same time. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so that doesn't appeal to any common sense. Similarly, if it is having an energy equal to 1 joule, then it cannot have an energy equal to 2 joules or 2.5 joules. Okay, it is, other possibilities are excluded. In classical mechanics, when it pick out one possibility, other possibilities are excluded. Whereas in quantum mechanics, there is no such restriction. Superposition is a valid thing, because you can have the equation satisfying, because these are two different solutions, and a linear combination is also a solution. And that is why whenever you solve a linear differential equation, the final solution you will write it as a linear combination of individual solutions. If it is a second order system, you have two solutions. If it is a first order system, you will have one solution, right? When you solve the differential equation, and then you say that the complete solution is constant multiplying the first solution plus another constant multiplying the second solution. So a linear combination of the two solutions. So any linear system, this is a valid assumption, that you can add in signal science system also, linear systems. What do we mean by that? You add two signals, then effectively the output is getting added. Okay, so that therefore that is the definition of linearity itself, right? So if there are infinite number of solutions, here you can take a linear combination of all those infinite solutions, which is also a valid solution of this problem. So there are a lot of strangeness here, and this, you can extend this strangeness to a lot of different possibilities, like an electron passing through two slits at the same time, which is like passing through one slit is one possibility, passing through another slit is another possibility, but a linear combination of this is also a possibility that can be. But this doesn't make any sense to our classical experience, and that is one of the reason we have difficulty in understanding or making sense, rather than understanding we can say making sense of quantum mechanics. Okay, so let us leave that there, and then we will go into some of the problems. So the very first problem that I want to take up is a free particle. Now what is this problem? You have a free particle which is moving in space, and when I say the free particle, what I mean is there is no potential or force acting on it. So a free particle is one on which there exists no external force. It's free. Okay, no external force is acting on it, which means what? My Hamiltonian is fully the kinetic energy, because no external force, so there is no potential energy part. So potential energy is zero. That is zero. So the Hamiltonian is fully due to the kinetic energy. So therefore our eigenvalue problem will become very simplified, which is h. So let's take a 1D problem. Phi of x is equal to E x. Okay, h phi of x is equal to E phi of x. Now what is h? Where h is only minus h cut square by 2m and dou square by dou x square. Okay, so this is the only thing that is there, because kinetic energy is the only thing in the Hamiltonian. Potential energy is zero. So therefore I can write the Schrodinger equation, that is time independent. So whenever we solve the Schrodinger equation, we have to first solve the time independent Schrodinger equation and then get phi of x and E, and that then we need to put it in the time dependent part. So therefore Schrodinger equation becomes, so you substitute for so here let me say that it is time, this is time dependent. Okay, so time dependent Schrodinger equation will become minus h cut square by 2m dou square by dou x square of phi of x is equal to E phi of x. Okay, so there is no potential is zero. So this is the simplest problem one can think about. Now the question is like, okay, so let me rearrange this in a standard form. So here only, whenever I write the time independent Schrodinger equation, I don't need partial derivative. I can write full derivative, because there is only one variable, so which is d square by dx square. So let me just rearrange this. It is d square by dx square of psi of x. So plus 2me by h cut square, okay, into psi of x, and this is a very familiar differential equation. It is a second order differential equation, and we all know the solution. So you can take you can compare it with an equation like this, d square y by dx square plus alpha square y is equal to 0. So what is y? Y is basically e raised to, there will be two solutions. So first solution is e raised to plus j alpha x okay, and then you take some amplitude for that, a plus b into minus j alpha x. So both of these are solutions. So since it is a second order, you can substitute this and you will see that it will satisfy the above equation. For example, let me substitute this. So this equation, if I substitute the first solution, I will get d square. So double derivative, if I take, what will I get? So j alpha will be multiplied 2 times. So j alpha the whole square into y. That's what I will get, because exponential, it will not change the form, it will remain as exponential, only j alpha will be multiplied, and plus alpha square y, and you can see that it is satisfying because j square is minus 1, so it is minus alpha square y plus alpha square y, and that is equal to 0. I can take the second solution also, right? I can take e raised to minus j alpha x, and so only difference is that if I take the second solution, I will have minus j alpha into square into y plus alpha square y. So this will also be 0 because minus 1 you can pull out, and it is the same thing basically. So there are 2 solutions, and I can write the complete solution as a into first solution plus b into second solution. So same way I can do it here also. So if I take the first solution, so phi of x, I can write it as, let me take say a itself as the constant, and the first solution is e raised to j into, and here I have to take square root of 2me. Alpha square is this, so alpha is basically square root of this, into x plus b into e raised to minus, okay, e divided by h cut into x. So these are the 2 solutions. So we got the solution to this problem. So now where E is basically what? E is basically, we know that since it's a kinetic energy, where E is equal to the kinetic energy. Now here, is there any restriction on E? In this particular problem, we have no restriction on E, okay, because it's a free particle, and the particle is allowed to take any value of energy, okay, which is not usually the case in quantum mechanics, okay, but only in the case of free particle it is allowed to take any value of energy. So you can put any value, there is no restriction anywhere imposed, because there is no boundary condition which will impose some condition on E. Here it is free, it can go from minus infinity to plus infinity, anywhere in between. It is free to wander, there is no external force, and it is allowed to have any value of energy. Okay, so now what is the final solution? So therefore the final solution is basically x comma t, and that will be I have the first solution phi 1 of x, and it will be multiplied with the so we have what so minus j e minus a g minus j e by h cut t, right? So that will be one solution, and then okay, so if phi 1 is a solution, then I will take that. So this is my phi 1, so this is my phi 1, and this is my phi 2, and I can write okay, this plus phi 2 of x into minus e by h cut t. So I will just what did I do? Phi of x I just multiplied with the phi of f of t. Okay, so this is basically my f of t. So I am multiplying f of t. Okay, you can think about it as this entire thing multiplied with f of t. So that way I can write the psi of x of t. Now if I now substitute for phi 1 and phi 2, so this is basically equal to, so I have a into e raised to j. So j I will take j by h cut I will take common because it is there in both, and then I will have okay, let me take okay, the remaining thing I will keep it here. So square root of 2me into x, I will keep it here, and then minus what minus e t, I will keep it here. Okay, and plus then b into e raised to j by h cut. I can take minus also outside because both term has minus, so it will be again 2me then x plus e t. Now, so this is what we have the two solutions. Okay, we have the two solution, and what is the difference between the two solution? Now, yesterday I discussed with you the solution of wave equation. If you look at if it's the second order equation, you will have two solution, and one will be like this and the other is like this. And if you look at the first solution, this is corresponding to a particle moving to plus x direction, whereas the second solution is corresponding to particle moving in minus x direction. Okay, so particle moving to the plus x direction and particle moving to the minus x direction. How do I know? Because you see the shift is with minus. Minus means moving to the right, right? So as time increases, x is shifted to the right. Okay, so that way you can write as time increases, x becomes x minus x0, this kind of way. So that is shifting right, so particle is moving to the right. Whereas here as time increases, x is shifted to x plus x0, so that is moving left. So this is the first problem. So let me stop here and we will continue after 5 minutes.